I would note this because this is important. You know, Donald Trump's re-election campaign in October of 2020 was running ads bragging with Fauci saying Trump did everything I told him to do. They were putting that out. They were bragging about it. And then on January 19th, 2021, Donald Trump's last day as president, he gave Fauci a presidential commendation. So those were wrong to do that. And clearly, I think the important thing is this, looking forward, we need accountability for what went wrong, because those people in positions of authority at the CDC, Fauci, they lied about lockdowns, school closures, mask mandates. They were wrong. It did a lot of damage around this country. And I know that because the people that were harmed, a lot of them came to Florida and would tell us about it. So we need a reckoning so that this never happens to our country again.
Oh, boy. Well, okay, so I guess that was one of the first big... I was waiting to see when the Florida governor was going to ever match the energy, I guess, or not the energy, match the slap, I don't know how to put it, of the former president. Welcome back to the program. Dana Loesch here with you. Bottom of this second hour. Well, there we go. So that's, I guess it's on. Bang a gong, it's on. My word. This is now the primary is going to get super, super interesting. Now look, regardless of what you think, I'm going to call balls and strikes here. So just buckle up, because I'm probably going to make you mad with what I'm going to say. No matter what side of the aisle you are on in the primary, and I mean only on the Republican side, you know, the little aisle on the Republican side, you're going to get mad at me for something. So just get ready. So two things. The first thing, he's not wrong. The second thing, yes, the people who are saying, well, wait, Florida also followed and did some lockdown. That's also true. You're right. Now, here's where it gets deeper. So, yes, he's not wrong. And yes, Florida followed the White House edict. And in the early days, with some of these other states, certain things were locked down, although I understand that they have a hierarchy in Florida, and that you have certain counties, kind of like Texas. You have like, so we have county judges here, right? So we have Clay Jenkins, who's horrible. Clay Jenkins is the Dallas county judge. He's the guy who's like, no, we have to have mandatory masks, and these things can't open. And then he was pictured at a big old backyard wedding for his daughter, maskless, and everybody's partying maskless and all this stuff. And then Glenn Whitley, who's the county judge for Tarrant, the county that I live in, he's been replaced by Tim O'Hare, who's like, yeah, we ain't doing no more masks. It's never going to happen again. So Glenn Whitley, he was a quote-unquote Republican. He also was like, no, mask mandates, all this stuff. And then he got pictured at, what are those things called? Steve, what are the things called that you wear like a flight suit and you basically lay over a vent and it throws you up in the air with wind? What's that? Like one of those places where you can go do that? Yes. Yeah, but it's like inside. He went with his kids, all maskless, all doing this stuff. When we couldn't go to church, he was doing that. So there is a hierarchy in Florida that is similar to Texas, where you have different areas and the governor was allowing those people in Florida, like in Texas. All right, you're going to have this administration over your area and be able to make that determination, because that's the hierarchy that you have to observe when you're in elected office. Then he started fighting with them, though, when they were really going nuts and kept, like in Miami, the Miami mayor kept the beaches closed. Now, here's the difference. And I told you you're going to get mad at me, but I realize that everybody's attention span, it's Friday, but I want you to hold your horses. Here's where it's different. Yes, DeSantis is 1,000% correct in a soundbite. And yes, Florida in the early days followed the edict that everybody else followed. However, they also followed the science. Do you remember, and it wasn't just Florida, I don't want to overlook some other Republican states that did similarly. Georgia was one of them. Do you remember when the Florida governor and others jettisoned a lot of these federal CDC people that had been dispatched to advise? They got rid of them and they just had their Florida medical experts. because they thought, you guys aren't following the science. You're politicizing this. This is no longer truth-based or helpful. They saw pretty early on that, okay, this isn't going to work to mitigate anything. They followed the White House's edict, the president's edict, and then they also followed the science. And when science diverged from what the edict was, they continued following the actual science and everything, and then reversed everything, opened it up, stopped with all the social distancing and that. Now, the reason that we know that this is true, unfortunately, is because the White House got into a spat with Florida about it. And not just Florida, they also got into a fight. I think it was also, South Dakota and Georgia that they were arguing with. They were arguing with Republicans in South Dakota, too. I'm telling you this because we're calling balls and strikes. I guarantee I'm going to make you mad on something. So there was a letter that had been sent from the White House to Florida, from the Trump White House to DeSantis in Florida, demanding the reinforcement of the mask mandate and social distancing. This was in 2021. Washington Examiner obtained the letter, and the Florida administration was told that, quote, aggressive mitigation must be used with uniform implementation of 2 to 3 ply well-fitting masks and strict physical distancing. I'm quoting it verbatim. And they were saying that they needed to do this in order to improve their virus response. At this point, the governor's office had lifted all of the coronavirus restrictions on all of the businesses, all of the restaurants, and fines were banned. Now, you will remember they were fighting with different county administrators over this, because some parts of Florida, some elected officials wanted to implement fines, and they were threatened by the governor's office. And at that point is when CNN and MSNBC, and I'm looking at other articles that I have saved, they were accusing him of being a tyrant and saying that he was overstepping his bounds and ignoring the hierarchy of elected office in Florida. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And there was a radio interview in which, so this letter went out, and they were saying, don't delay rapid immunization. They sent, and it was the White House sent, they said, don't delay rapid immunization. You need to be aggressive you need to be active and aggressive with immunization. They demanded the state maintain public confidence and maximize vaccine acceptance to address persistent vaccine hesitancy. That is verbatim from the letter. And the administration, and this is in January of 2021, added, quote, Florida must increase both statewide and local public mitigation, increase communication around the importance of personal mitigation with masking, physical distancing, and avoiding family gatherings. So Florida did not do that. Georgia also did not do it. And when Georgia reopened, the White House, at a coronavirus task force press briefing on television, the president said that he had, quote, strongly disagrees with the decision to open certain facilities. And they thought that they should still have certain things be closed, and the masking and the distancing. Now, look, I get in the early days that people didn't know what the hell was going on. And we were absent. We lacked a media that normally the function of the media wouldn't be for state to champion statists. It would be to inform the people for whom it works. I get that. But as actual science started to become clear, that the masking was not working, that the vaccines weren't actually preventing transmission, and there were a lot of issues that were going along with it, there were certain people who said, okay, this isn't working and we're not going to do this. We're not doing this. and they stopped. There were others who didn't and still insist that it worked today. And the difference in how long the White House kept to the narrative of masking and social distancing and vaccinations, and how states like Georgia and Florida did not, there is a difference that is undeniable. I don't care how much you love the former president. I don't care how much you like DeSantis. We are conservatives because we base our opinions on fact. When we stop doing that, honestly, I think we cease being conservatives. I really do. Then we become like the left, personality and emotion. These two things are undeniable. And I don't think that you can retcon the story on this and rewrite the history on this. And that's one of the things that, I see people trying to do. And I'm like, we live this. I had friends, my kids had friends who literally left Texas, even Texas, because Texas was closed, and decamped to Florida. I had friends who took their kids out of New York and went to Florida because their schools were open, when schools in Texas weren't open. I mean, we live this. You can't tell me something the exact opposite of what I literally lived through. And I get it, that in the early days, DeSantis followed the White House edict, but when science became clear, he stopped, and that resulted in the fight with the White House, and not just with Florida, but with other states. People remember this stuff. So I think it's important to A, not retcon this, and be accurate about it. Know what you're supporting, especially if you're saying it's for limited government.